First question. This is from Danny. Danny in Alaska. Hello, Danny. Danny writes, through dealing with a dispute with a contractor this week, I realized how stressful it is for me to be assertive in the face of confrontation. I used to avoid it. Now I try to be present with right speech and right action. But I can feel the huge resistance and turmoil in both mind and body. I'm sure this is not uncommon, but will you talk about ways to approach this? Yeah, Danny, this is a great question. So I spent most of my life, I'm getting pretty old now, so maybe not most of my life, much of my life, at least half of my life trying to avoid conflict. And this is very common with spiritual people. Spiritual people like, temperature to be just right. They like everything to be what I call nice, bunny rabbit soft, no loud noises, no strong perfume smells, whatever it is that spiritual people are highly sensitive to. Most spiritual people, when we come to the world and we're sensitive, we don't like things that are loud or confrontational. We don't like anything uncomfortable. But what I would like you to imagine, Danny, is Christ. The life of Christ, he didn't speak about comfort, about just making everything just right. He didn't create the world's softest pillow, as seen on TV. The truth doesn't care about comfort, how things feel. So, Danny, you're a man of truth. And if the truth is that you need to speak up with your contractor, I encourage you to speak clearly to him or her and just tell them, hey, what's the situation? I thought this was going to happen, but it seemed like that happened. What's the deal here? What's the deal? Now I can tell you, I actually used to work as a contractor for many years. I worked for my teacher, and then when he didn't have enough work for me, occasionally I'd go do little jobs, or sometimes big jobs for other people, neighbors of his and or whoever it was. And the thing with contracting is oftentimes you're dealing with great mysteries. If you're having to work with something that's buried behind a wall. And so a contractor might give you a price and thinking it might go this way, but when he or she opens up the wall, they might discover a mystery back there. Oh, this was done all wrong. Now I have to redo the whole thing, and this wasn't done according to code, but now I have to do it according to code, and so the price is going to be more. A lot of people get in disagreements with contractors. I used to get a lot of work because other contractors weren't such good communicators. But the truth doesn't care. How you feel, how the contractor feels, what the truth cares about is what is the truth. And so I encourage you to speak the truth clearly, not with a big agenda, not with any fight, not with any even the sense of confrontation, but just to sit someone down and say, hey, can we speak about this? And oftentimes what you'll notice in your energetic body is you'll notice some fire, or there'll be a clench in the throat chakra. What the throat chakra is doing is it's trying to micromanage feeling, so you don't just burst out the wrong thing. Because oftentimes when people have confrontation, they normally want to run or they'll start yelling. And so the throat chakra tries to, mitigate all that struggle. What I would rather you do, Denny, is just to come deep into your belly, into the Hara chakra. and in a very rational way, just speak what's true. This is what's happening. I thought it was going to be this much. Now I see it's that much. What happened? What happened? A willingness to speak, a willingness to listen, a willingness to understand that life doesn't always work out how it's supposed to. It's normally the contractor or the mechanic. The same thing happens with a mechanic, plumber, whatever it is. The mechanic might go in to fix, your timing belt, and then realize, when he has the engine opened up, you also need a water pump. It's easy for our mind to go into a thought of, oh, he's trying to rip me off. And maybe that's true, but it also may be true that, hey, the job turned out to be bigger than how we originally planned. And so when you're rooted in peace, if you feel into the hara is, it's often experienced as this mountain of peace. It's like strength and peace. And it can acknowledge, oh, the job's going to cost a little bit more. Can I negotiate a better price? Can I speak from a place of peace and truth? Can I breathe deeply into my own emotions? Normally people are angry at contractors because of money, or mechanics because of money. And when money gets in the way, oftentimes we don't see the truth. We stop seeing the truth once there's a price tag there. Everyone has a different relationship with money. I once worked for a lady, and she loved when I charged her. She just loved it. The more I charged her, the more happy she was. The more other people, she had a plumber who charged her, it's like $150 an hour, and she just loved paying him. She used it to brag. Most everyone else didn't like to be charged a lot. They wanted to nickel and dime and get the best deal. And, they always thought you were trying to rip them off if it cost more. And it's like, hey, like, I'm a human being, things come up. Like, what's actually happening? Can we talk about it from a place of peace and clarity? And so in order to get comfortable with confrontation, you have to get comfortable with overwhelming feelings. And oftentimes they're just overwhelming feelings in your body. And if you start to look, if you look in a deep and psychological way, what you find is that oftentimes with confrontation, we learn about confrontation from our childhood. So like me, my father, very confrontational guy. He, often raised his voice. He would yell. He'd use profanity. I mean, he could use the F word 5 or 6 times in one sentence, So people were just terrified of my father. So as a kid, I looked at all authority, all confrontation as, experience of being a little boy in the house of my father. I was just terrified. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. And so when I grew up and, when I was doing contracting work, whenever confrontation came forward, I just gave the other person a deal. And I said, oh, I'll just fix it for free. Don't worry about the price. I'll just do it. I went above and beyond, and it just made me broke all the time because, between that and working for my teacher didn't have a lot of money, so he couldn't pay me a lot. I was broke for most of my adult life. But at some point I had to learn to speak up and say, hey, I need a little bit more money, or this is going to cost a little bit more, and it's not my fault. Can we work something out? And I can remember the first time, I started to ask for more, like a fair living wage. I felt this nervousness inside, this shakiness, like this quivering in my chest. So I'd take a deep breath, my voice would be a little shaky, and I would just, just let it roar. Just say, "Hey, I'm gonna need a little bit more money." And so, eventually you develop, true confidence. But oftentimes we have to walk through that doorway of shakiness. When I was out in the desert this weekend, and when I was out there somewhere in Indian Creek, Utah or Moab area, Canyonlands, Needles area, I saw this bumper sticker, and it said, "Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Even if your voice trembles." And so, in order to get comfortable with confrontation, oftentimes we have to do this. And sometimes we have to get a little carried away with it at first, like an activist, angry, yelling in the street. And if we give ourselves permission just to go a little overboard, what we'll find is we'll self-correct back. But most spiritual people are too busy being quiet and speaking and, like little mice, and not getting anywhere, not getting anywhere. So, anyways, thank you, Danny. So the big thing is to get comfortable with big feelings. And this is truly a spiritual question, because if you want to be free in an embodied way, you have to be comfortable with big feelings. You have to be comfortable with emotions. You have to be comfortable with anger, sadness, fear, oppression, whatever it is. You have to get comfortable with it and then learn to say, "Hey, that's not right. What you did is not right. I'm going to set a boundary," or whatever it is, whatever the truth is. Get comfortable with asserting yourself. Any true master, they just speak their truth. Amma, she doesn't ask permission to speak. She just speaks her truth. She speaks it. She doesn't say, "Excuse me." She says, "Hey, hey, hey, hey." And then she speaks her truth. I've seen her do it before. And it's funny. And she's maybe 5 foot tall and probably the most powerful woman on planet Earth. And she's comfortable speaking her truth to whoever it is, whether it's a president of any country. She's met with all, many great world leaders and religious leaders from every tradition, the Dalai Lama, whoever it is, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, and she just speaks to him directly because she's comfortable with who and what she is. The further you walk on this path, and the more deeply you fall in love with yourself, what you'll find is your heart will start to open, and you'll discover this incredible reservoir of power, of truth. My wife tells me all the time that I talk too much to people I don't know, just like they're my best friend. And it's because I don't see a division between me and them. I see no walls. And so when you have a wall between you and confrontation, you actually have a wall between you and yourself and you and the world. And so part of being free, part of being awake, is having no walls. No walls, being unmoved, by silliness, by nonsense. And so anyways, I hope that was helpful, Denny.